From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, the Trump Rebellion.
As we decided to allocate our time and energy and resources on the state of Indiana, Governor Kasich decided to allocate his resources elsewhere. I think that made sense from both campaigns.
To some, it's the art of the deal. To others, it's a backroom conspiracy. But this week, the two candidates challenging Donald Trump for the Republican presidential nomination formed a de facto alliance. Facing Donald Trump's eastern sweep of 5 GOP primaries on Tuesday, Ted Cruz and John Kasich are now coordinating to prevent Mr. Trump from securing the GOP nomination before the party's July convention. Once at the convention, Mr. Cruz and Mr. Kasich hope to beat Mr. Trump if the first ballot is deadlocked. And so, Mr. Cruz has now ceased campaigning in Oregon and New Mexico. In turn, Mr. Kasich has ceased campaigning in Indiana. And note this, making new news on Wednesday, Ted Cruz announced Carly Fiorina would be his vice presidential running mate if he wins the GOP nomination. Is this good strategy, or is it backroom racketeering? Pat Buchanan.
I think it's desperation past, John. But look, this non-aggression pact between Cruz and Kasich, one campaigns in Indiana, the other goes to New Mexico and Oregon, collapsed within hours of its being negotiated, where Kasich said, I want my people in Indiana to vote for me. Also, the Carly Fiorina thing, I understand why Cruz is doing it. He needs something to ignite his campaign and change the subject after those 5 state losses. I think what's going to happen, John, though, is Indiana, Trump, as of late in the week, was surging and doing better and better and better. And I think what's going to happen is that Trump is going to win Indiana. I think Kasich then will see the writing on the wall and will drop out of the race. But because Cruz has Carly Fiorina, who did win a California primary with him, he's going to wait and go through to the California primary. But John, this thing is just about over. The train is leaving the station.
Last page.
Well, I think this is a move of desperation that was also designed to get Ted Cruz some airtime that would begin to compete with that Donald Trump gets virtually every day routinely. In this case, his introduction to Carly Fiorina was like about a half hour long. Right. I recall it was like more of a rally for Ted Cruz than it was an introduction for Carly Fiorina. But this is kind of where Ted Cruz is right now. He's looking at hopefully a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th ballot, whatever, in order to try to have some slim chance of being able to negotiate a nomination. It's not likely to happen.
I think the real story is the Republican Party coming to terms with Donald Trump as now the most likely nominee. And maybe they're going to discover characteristics in him that they didn't realize how much they loved him. I think that's beginning. That non-aggression pact was basically a way for the super PACs to signal each other that one would be spending money here and not in the other. I mean, it was kind of a phony move. And Carly Fiorina is about as disliked as Ted Cruz. I mean, it's like doubling down on his worst characteristics.
But I think Carly Fiorina has a popularity with more establishment conservatives that Ted Cruz does struggle with. Ted Cruz has been resorted to by establishment conservatives, which I would say is the majority of Republicans, incidentally, and conservatives, because of the fact that he is not popular, but Donald Trump is even more unpopular. But now that's shifting to some degree because people are thinking about the electorability of Donald Trump. I have to say, though, I think that when we get to the convention, it's going to be very interesting. I think Democrats, understandably, are loving this because the Republican Party, people talk about the precipice. I think the Republican Party, my latest column, has actually collapsed already. I just think those divorces...
Hold on, Pat. I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
It relates to the federal, the FEC, Federal Election Committee.
Right.
Is this deal violative of FEC prohibitions against coordinating spending between PACs and campaigns.
No, it's not unless the
Yeah.
super PACs got
Yeah.
together
Yeah,
and conspired. But let me say this, look, there is no case for Cruz or Kasich. They go to the convention and Trump can say, I won by 4 million more votes than you guys. I've got 400 more delegates than you. I've got the biggest crowd. I've won more victories. And what does Cruz say? Want the nomination and deserve it.
But
Why?
The case
Well,
is that Trump doesn't have that majority of Republican
why-
support.
what
Most
does-
Republicans
the
don't
case-
like him.
What does Cruz
The
have to
case-
say? Claim the nomination?
That he can unify
Nothing.
those
He
disenfranchised
can
people.
unify those people.
Well, that's his argument, isn't
That's
it?
his
That's
argument.
what he hasn't done.
That's his argument, though.
yeah.
But I agree with you, though. He hadn't got much of a chance with it.
Yeah, if they could have kept Trump from getting, if they could have kept him to 1,100 delegates instead of, I think maybe then they would have had a case, because his negatives are up in the 60s. He does look, by all conventional terms, unelectable, and the party is anxious about it. But Cruz is no more electable than Donald Trump.
10% in the eastern states.
Yeah.
He's being wiped out.
Yep.
Question. Did Donald Trump's foreign policy address demonstrate gravitas?
I wrote on that, John. I wrote a column on his foreign policy address. There is a lot
Hold
of
on, Pat.
All right.
From the setting to the teleprompter to the substance, the speech conveyed gravitas. Trump declared an America First foreign policy that eschews, Pat. Eschews, you want help with that word? Eschews
Right.
nation building adventurism.
It also is choose, John, using American power as an armed doctrine to change the world. Inside the Trump speech, there's a lot of people criticize, got this in there, he's after Iran. Inside it, you can extract from it a very realistic foreign policy, of non-interventionist foreign policy, a policy of talking to the Russians, talking to the Chinese, and other aspects which are very much in the tradition of Eisenhower and Nixon and Reagan. Now, not all of it. There are
He
parts
is
of
not
it.
Eisenhower
There are
or
parts of it.
Reagan.
Well, the phrase
No, but
itself.
you can draw it out of there.
The
I've done it.
You can draw anything out of that speech, I tell you.
The phrase itself, America First, has a rather complicated history in this, and maybe you consider yourself an America Firster,
That was
but
the
it
phrase
goes.
we used in '92.
It's the phrase that was used in '39 and '40 to try to keep keep us out of
America
World
First
War II
movement was-
with Charles Lindbergh, and that's not a
And
very
John
proud
F. Kennedy
fast,
and
right.
Joe Kennedy backed it, and Potter Stewart backed America
That doesn't
First.
mean
and
it was
all of these-
right. That
Herbert
doesn't
Hoover.
mean it was
They might
right.
have been wrong, but they were.
It was
they
wrong.
shouldn't be demonized.
You know what the funny thing is? I don't think Donald Trump knows what the history of America First.
anybody
You know,
knew the
until
history,
he tells me,
that's
I'm going to presume that he does not know that history, because frankly, most baby boomers don't know it. And
Maybe
he's,
it's a dog whistle to Pat, who's
Well, maybe,
secret
maybe. I
America
mean, for
Firster,
people-
maybe not so secret.
No, it's a
Exit
good
question.
phrase. It's a good phrase.
Be brief. Will next week's Indiana primary be Ted Cruz's Alamo?
I think
Yes
he's
or
going
no?
I think he's going to run second. He's going to get beat, but I think he's going to go into California.
Yeah, it'll
is
be
my guess.
Alamo 1 and California will be Alamo 2. He's going to make a couple of
Davy
last
Crockett will live
last
to fight
stands.
another day in this case.
That's right.
Yes, California, also known as the last nail in the coffin, is probably what's going to happen there.
Right.
Yes, Cruz is making his last stand. Issue 2. Give me my money. What do we want? Minimum wage and living wage laws are the top priority of many liberal legislatures across the nation. But according to an Associated Press report this week, worker access to those wages is regularly restricted. Notably, in states like Oregon, California, and New York, many workers complain that their employers refuse to pay the minimum wages. Accordingly, they say, low-wage workers are losing out on millions of dollars of earnings. So, in response, labor advocacy groups are calling on state and federal governments to impose higher penalties on employers who do not pay their employees the minimum set wage. Question: what should be done to enforce minimum wage laws? Let's try this again on you, Buchanan, see if you can
Well, it's the same old process. They pass an increase in the minimum wage, then let's hire some bureaucrats who are going to make a lot more than the minimum wage and get great jobs to enforce it. Look, when minimum wage jobs, John, they do several things. In one case, they do raise the wages of people at the lowest level if you go from $7.50 to $10 to $15. They do a second thing. They really hammer small businesses that got a lot of low-wage workers. They lay some off, or some of them go out of business. Some of them don't do any new hiring. That's the economic impact, conservative versus liberal. And I agree that it ought to be done at the state level. It ought to be done at the municipal level. And if it works in one place, okay there. And the federal government ought to do the right thing, keep a very, very low national minimum wage.
Well, I think this wasn't supposed to be an issue about debating over the minimum wage, but about employers who don't do it and how you hold them accountable. And I don't know that it necessarily means hiring more bureaucrats, but it means people who are being taken advantage of should be able to have the ability to step forward. And that doesn't happen because you have people probably, they might be undocumented. So, I mean, I think this is part of our economy, that there's still a lot that's going on. No, I think you continue trying to boost the minimum wage, and you continue trying to publicize employers if they're not paying it. But that means workers have to have the courage to step forward. And I'm saying it's still very difficult in this economy.
I think the difficulty here is you see here is the left's focus on the legal regulatory framework, the idea that somehow with businesses, all you have to do is just enforce it. The problem though with minimum wages, the problem why these employers are not providing it, is that because that marginal cost of labor increasing, it makes their productive potential, it destroys it. There's no point in hiring those people.
And so they say.
The enforcement, well, let's
So
see.
I
think two or three,
why is the cost of
movability of
gone
capital.
down while inflation has gone up?
Let's see what happens in the next 2 or 3 years, and we'll have that debate again. But I really do believe, and maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am wrong, actually. But the problem is that you enforce those laws, you will simply push businesses out of action, and employment will decrease.
There's always been a legal minimum wage and a real minimum wage.
Right.
The real minimum wage goes up and down with the economy.
Right.
But the fact is,
the market.
Americans nationwide have not had an increase since what? Around
let's see what
1980.
happens. Let's see what happens if it goes. It's going to go to $15 in some community cities out in the Northwest. Yeah, let's see what happens.
Right.
Yeah, actually, this is an argument for unions. I mean, this is why you need to have unions in there, because they protect the workers. And unions have lost so much strength in recent years. Because corporations with the benefit of the Supreme Court have
in fact, it's unions that are pushing these minimum wage increases around the country.
But in Wisconsin, even government workers voted to break up the union or get out of the unions. Unions are not popular.
It depends on the state, but I mean, everybody loves the benefits
Corporations
of unions. Everybody wants to pay for
Pat.
it.
But again, I just think you look at Texas to California, the exodus of wealth, it's going to continue. Liberals are going to have to reap the whirlwind on this, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, and we'll see. But one fundamental problem with the minimum wage as well is that the youngest and low-skilled find it harder to access the marketplace.
We used to have
learn skills.
We had a minimum wage for teenage wage, so that they could come in under the minimum, because it's more important that they learn how to work than it is how much they're getting paid.
Which is
a good idea.
Which is a virtue,
fine.
but the problem is in today's economy, we're finding more and more single moms in particular having to raise kids on the minimum wage. That's not a teenage wage we're talking about.
We're not
And that's why
teenagers. We're not talking about teenage children of prosperous parents who are just
True
learning
or
work
false?
skills.
True or false? The federal government, through the Labor Department or another entity, should enforce state and local minimum wage laws.
They should enforce the federal law and let the states enforce the state law. Right.
Well,
It's not a federal responsibility.
Well, if it's a federal law, you get what they really ought to get a breakdown. Say if it's got 50 employees or more, the federal government handles it. Less the state government.
I think they probably have those rules.
Yeah, the worse it gets, the more people are going to vote on this issue. That's why now we're talking about, and some states and municipalities are raising a minimum wage now, not waiting for the federal government, because people on the lower brackets are just falling farther and farther behind.
Create opportunity. That's
Maybe this is something Bernie Sanders can.
Issue 3.
Perfect issue.
Right, exactly.
Issue 3, washroom wrangle.
Repeal this bill now! We think they're new on the block, and we want to reestablish and reinstate what our history says is right.
North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory is trying to prevent transgender individuals from using restrooms of their choice.
Being trans is not a crime.
But in doing so, he has sparked outrage at home and abroad. The British government has issued a travel warning to Britons considering visiting North Carolina and Mississippi. And many celebrities, corporations, and politicians are now boycotting the state. Estimates say these boycotts have already cost North Carolina tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue. And note another Southern showdown. First Lady Michelle Obama is leading a new wave of criticism against Southern state voter ID laws that she argues will disenfranchise many minorities. Question, what's going on, Tom Rogan?
Well, I think what you see here is that the left are trying to weaponize this issue because it has, potency in terms of trying to persuade millennials that the conservatives are being extreme. Some conservatives are being extreme. Some conservatives are, look, someone transgender doesn't affect us. But the reason I think conservatives are right to some degree in saying that transgender people should use either the bathroom of their post-operative sex or the bathroom of their birth sex, and not somewhere in between.
Yeah, what's your view on that?
Is not the issue posed by transgender people. It's the issue posed by other people who I do believe will manipulate that situation to invade people's privacy and to degrade that.
This is the left.
Who tend to be conservatives, by the way. I don't know where you get the idea the leftists are trying to weaponize
That's
this.
ridiculous.
The left is already winning on this issue.
But what is the difficulty in saying
with
that it should be
Donald
post-op
Trump.
or birth?
No,
sex?
I'm with Donald Trump. Let's just do what we've always been doing. This is not a problem. This is a phony solution in search of a problem. It's just like the voter fraud. There's no voter fraud, and they're passing all these laws to exclude people. And this is, frankly, this is about discrimination.
And we quote Eleanor's with Donald Trump. Let's quote that.
I am with Trump on that issue.
John,
That's
this is a state issue, and I think it's very much a local issue, and I do believe that you don't want grown men going into girls' bathrooms. You don't want men and women's showers or locker rooms.
It's not
and that's a
happening.
tradition.
It's
they
not
ought to,
happening.
They ought to write it locally into law,
Actually,
and if
it's
you
already
say it
happening.
doesn't happen,
Right.
I will agree with you.
Actually,
If
it's
it's not
already
happening,
happening,
it's not
Pat.
happening.
Actually, it's already happening, Pat. I mean, transgender people are using the bathroom of their choice right now. It is political people finding, this is kind of like Willie Horton. This is a great issue to hold up in order to get people alarmed and excited over something that is not a danger.
I think McCrory is wrong when he says that you should still have to use the bathroom of your birth sex. Okay, if you're post-operative,
How is he
use that
going
bathroom.
to
But wait. Here's the thing.
enforcing
But the law is blind essentially when it comes to the application of this, the practicality, and that means I don't think I should be able to go into a women's bathroom. Okay, I don't think that. And the problem is, and I don't think transgender people.
The law isn't addressing that.
No,
You're
but
not
people
part
will
of this
take,
issue
there's a great,
as
people
much
can
as
go
you'd
on
like to
YouTube
be.
and look at the guy going to Target.
Just as we should stay out of the Brexit argument, your prime minister over there should
I'm
stay out of
American,
North
I keep
Carolina.
reminding you.
Stay out of my bathroom. That's the issue.
Businesses like Target are leading the way, actually, and they're basically saying you use the
But they had a man going
restroom
in there
that
yesterday saying, "Can I
that you
use it to test
identify
it?"
with.
And so,
Yeah, to test it, right. It's a publicity stunt. You
Okay,
know,
but there are
this
going to
is
be people.
how crazy we get
The
over
problem
this
is not
stuff.
transgender people, but the problem is the people who are going to take advantage of this
when-
from malevolent
what's
intentions.
gonna happen is a bad incident.
Already. We had a reporter who switched sexes back in the 70s. And, I mean, she would go into the restroom of her choice, and it was not an issue
Because she's a woman now.
because of privacy.
You're
Yeah,
gonna have a
right.
bad-
Which is fine.
You're going to have a bad incident occur with some kid, and that will explode this issue, and it will go against liberalism.
Yeah.
I'm waiting
How
for it to
many-
happen.
Have any
It's
of
gonna happen, it
these,
would
have
happen
any of these
already.
bad incidents with kids occurred over the last decades in your memory that
Yeah.
would even prompt this law?
How do you know?
Right.
Well,
How
do you
many
know? I mean,
trans-
everybody
excuse
makes this
me.
argument, nobody brings
So-
up an example.
Excuse
of
me,
it.
how many transgendered people are there in the U.S.?
700,000.
This will shock you. 700,000, widely
I
cited.
did his research.
Well done.
That is based only on surveys in
See, because I'm
Massachusetts.
doing my research.
Well done.
Please, I'm reading.
I said
How
700,000.
boorish. That's based on only on surveys in Massachusetts was 0.5% said they were transgender, and California was 0.1%. The Census Bureau hasn't counted.
But the point is that young people, if you go to college campuses, they see this as the next frontier in civil rights. I mean, there's a lot of activism around this issue, and I think appropriately so.
Should all bathrooms be unisex? Yes or no?
No, it would cost $1 trillion.
They are on airplanes.
Yeah, that's right.
But they're single occupancy.
Close
No.
it-
In
close
some
it.
restaurants they are already, you know,
That's
but
right.
it's not like this is something.
We
What
may
do you
be heading
think?
in that
Close
direction.
the door, single
Yeah.
user.
No,
Close
they
the door,
shouldn't- they
single user. Yes or no?
That's fine, but I don't think there should be unisex public bathrooms.
Yes or no?
You mean should all be unisex?
You heard the question.
Well, I think it's up to the people who own the establishment whether they want to be
can do
unisex
whatever
or
they
not.
want.
It's as
Private,
simple as that.
the state level is
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Issue 4, pro-life parenthood. Anti-abortion health centers in Georgia will be eligible to receive millions of dollars in state funds. Signing legislation to that effect this week, Governor Nathan Deal gave provisional approval for a $2 million allocation. Good morning. And while Governor Deal may still act to alter that allocation, not everyone is happy. Lamenting the decision, the pro-choice Guttmacher Institute told the Associated Press that Georgia and 10 other states with similar programs, quote, provide women with incomplete information or outright misinformation, end quote. But others say this legislation simply creates a level playing field between pro-life organizations and abortion providers or pro-choice like Planned Parenthood. And note this, Donald Trump says he wants to change the Republican Party's platform on abortion. Mr. Trump believes it should include exemptions for women whose lives are endangered by pregnancy or who have become pregnant via rape or incest. Question, is the GOP confused? Eleanor Clift.
I think the last thing that Donald Trump wants is a floor fight in Cleveland about anything, and especially about abortion rights. He did go with his instincts, which are that exceptions for rape and incest should be included, but I haven't heard him mention it since then. I think he's got some other issues on his mind, but so I doubt we're going to see him push that.
I think Eleanor's right on that, Karen. I don't think they'll start a huge battle over that. It's been embedded in the platform since Reagan days. And as for the I don't even know why the Georgia thing is a controversy, John. The state has the perfect right to provide facilities to aid women, especially poor women, who want to bring their children to term and to help them out. And they've got a right to say we're not doing abortions with these state funds. I don't know what the controversy is.
I think they've got to show that somebody's being denied access. That would come into conflict with Roe versus Wade. And in some anecdotal cases, that has happened where people have been seeking an abortion and not been able to get it because they've been steered
Can you
over
require
toward these
someone
other
to give
places.
people an abortion who don't believe in it? I don't think
I
you
don't
can.
think that's what's been
I think-
required.
look, I
It's
think-
mainly information.
Denying information.
Yeah.
I think this is a fight that the Guttmacher Institute should not have picked. Look, there's the big debate about federal funding, obviously, to Planned Parenthood, but the idea that somehow it's inappropriate to provide funds to women's health centers that are doing good work, that are, for those reasons, providing abortions. It's not a restriction on abortion rights. It's simply a provision into different mediums.
Now, these health centers providing abortion services?
No. So
they're
where
not?
the money is going to these
No,
particular
they're
places
not.
in Georgia, they're providing women's health services
Right.
short of abortion.
Short
and,
of,
and,
right.
and I don't. There's not a problem with that. I think that's
No, Planned
appropriate.
Parenthood provides all those too.
There's a lot of
Right.
hypocrisy for liberals to say it's okay for
Agreed.
Planned Parenthood.
No, I don't have a problem with them doing that.
Yeah.
I do have a problem when they try to cut funding to Planned Parenthood, which provides a lot of health services and a very small number of abortions. But Georgia, to its credit, looked into that whole phony scandal about Planned Parenthood selling fetal tissue, and they found there was no issue. So they are not blocking Planned
I think
Parenthood
they will
funding.
dump on Planned Parenthood in the platform, however, Eleanor.
Yes.
Well,
Planned
yeah.
Parenthood's always
Rely
been
upon
Well,
it.
Priebus
divided.
said that
Let
the
them
platform
dump
won't
as much
change.
as they want.
Yeah.
It's toothless.
But I did think it was very interesting in this.
Let me clear this up, all right? Let me explain what's going on.
Please.
Trump's plan to rewrite the platform is inspired. Now, why is it inspired?
It's inspired because he had to come up with something. And he
Well,
changed his position
he
4 or
wants to
5
run.
times.
He wants to run across a broad electorate, and the majority of Americans believe there should be exceptions for rape and
As
incest.
does George
So
W.
he'd like
Bush.
to move towards a general election posture.
But I
so
think he
it's
could-
inspired in that sense, but I kind of doubt that he's going to put all his chips
why
on the
would you-
table
Well,
in Cleveland fighting for this one.
He had botched some earlier answers on this, so
That's right.
He's botched a few
and he
answers
wants
on
to
a few
correct the
topics.
record.
But
This
I
is the
think
way
if
he's
there's
doing
an
it.
effort to take that out of the platform or to alter it that way, you would have a walkout at the
But
convention.
Priebus has
Do
said
you
it's
really
gonna be
want?
in there.
Do you really want that? I don't think
There's
so.
no way it's
That's right.
And I think the Donald is a better politician than Eleanor believes.
Yeah, he wasn't smart enough to think of a position before he declared for president. But
Doing
once
okay
he
right
really
now.
had to, in about 24 hours, about 4 or 5 different tries, he finally
Let's
came
see how
up
long it
with a
lasts.
belief. But I agree, he doesn't have firm enough beliefs to want to fight this out on the convention
Right,
floor. Why
right.
would he do that?
I think I said that.
You did.
Yeah,
You're right.
So I understand his politics on this one.
False prediction. Bernie Sanders will stay in the Democratic race until the California primary. Yes or no, Pat?
He's not only going to stay there, he'll stay through New Jersey, and he's going to go to the convention. He will demand a primetime speaking slot, and he will get it.
Yes, he'll stay in, and he deserves a primetime speaking spot. But what else he gets, I'm not sure.
Yes, he'll stay in, but those tensions between Hillary and Bernie are growing, and that's a problem for her campaign.
Yes, Bernie will stay in until California, and he'll get that speaking slot at the convention.
The answer is yes. Bernie Sanders will stay in. Bye-bye.